Hello and welcome. I'm Otis Landerholm. I'm the founding attorney here at Landerholm Immigration APC, where we fight for your American dream. And thank you so much for watching this video today. Today I'm going to talk about the I-944, the Declaration of Self-Sufficiency, which is a requirement to show that we are not inadmissible under the public charge grounds. So stay tuned and watch this video, and we'll learn how to fill out this I-944. All right, so welcome. So, so here we are. I'm going to share my screen, and the I-944 is a bit of a beast. It's 18 pages, and I've got the form itself, and I've also got the instructions, which you can download both of those on USCIS's website. If you go to uscis.gov/I-944, you can see it. They call it the I-944 Declaration of Self-Sufficiency. You can download the form and download the instructions. I recommend that you do that. All right. Once you've done that, though, we can look at it. I'm actually going to start with the instructions, and I'm going to go through just what I've highlighted here, and I want to help this make sense for everybody. All right. So what's the purpose of the I-944? It's basically to see whether or not a person is quote unquote inadmissible under the public charge grounds. All right. And back in the old day, this was a much, back in the old days, this was basically just looked at with the I-864, which is an affidavit of support. But now under the Trump administration, and starting on the 24th of February of this year, they are requiring a lot more information, all right, to satisfy whether or not someone is quote unquote admissible, that they're more likely than not, they're not going to be a public charge. So this is what it says. It says, an alien is inadmissible under section INA 212A4 if he or she is more likely than not at any time in the future to receive one or more public benefits as defined in this CFR section for more than 12 months in the aggregate within any 36-month period, such that, for instance, the receipt of 2 benefits in 1 month counts as 2 months. All right? I'm not going to go through that in a ton of detail in this video. I've done a separate video on the public charge ground of inadmissibility. My purpose for today is how do we fill out this form, right? And so that's what I want to go through. Hopefully, you've already determined that you're not inadmissible, and now it's a question of, okay, let's fill out the form correctly so that you can get this application on file along with your application for adjustment of status. All right, so who must fill it out? You must file this form along with your I-485, which is your application to adjust your status, to register permanent resident status. If you are subject to the public charge ground of inadmissibility, if you're filing this through asylum or through VAWA or through a U visa or a T visa or something like that, you are exempt from this. You're not even subject to the public charge ground of inadmissibility. All right, so keep that in mind also. You might not, depending on what type of I-485 you're filing, you might not even need it. All right. All right, so how is the form I-944 used? All right, so according to the government, all right, the form is used to determine whether or not you're inadmissible under section 212A4 because there's a likelihood that you will become a public charge in the future. And then I highlighted here, we evaluate whether you are inadmissible by weighing all the positive and negative factors related to your age, health, family status, assets, resources, and financial status, education and skills, prospective immigration status, and period of stay. All right. We also consider a form I-864 affidavit of support if you are required to submit an I-864 as part of your adjustment of status application. All right. So that's how it's used. Who is exempt? So I talked about this briefly. you're exempt if you're applying through VAWA or SIJS, Special Immigrant Juvenile Status. If you're as an Afghan or Iraqi national who helped with the U.S. Armed Forces, if you're an asylee or a refugee or a U visa holder, there are some other categories that are exempt as well. All right, so that's great. General instructions, basically you've got to make sure that the form is properly filled out and properly signed when you submit it. All right, and so for signatures, they do allow photocopied signatures, especially right now. I'm filming this on May 20th or during the coronavirus, so they are accepting scanned signatures, but it has to be an original, like it can't be an e-signature, all right? You can't type in the signature. It's got to be, there's got to be a actual ink on paper signature somewhere, all right? So great. And then evidence, you're going to have to include evidence along with this, but if you're submitting tax transcripts and other things like that, you don't need to submit it with the I-944 and again with the I-864 and again with the I-485. You can include one packet of evidence with the whole filing, all right? So I hope that clarifies that. As far as copies, don't submit original documents, all right, to USCIS, period. Don't submit original documents to USCIS. Instead, submit copies, and if they want an original, they can tell you. They can request more evidence, or you can go to an interview, all right, and take the originals with you to the interview. And in your interview notice, it'll say what originals they need. But typically, do not send original documents to the government. Just send legible photocopies. All right, cool. If there's a document that you're submitting that's in a different language, make sure it's accompanied by a good certified translation, and that translation is done by somebody who certifies and signs that they're fluent in both English and whatever that language is. All right. I'm scrolling down. What I'm scrolling through is like instructions that you'll see that are pretty basic once we look at the form itself. All right, when we look at household income, what they're looking at is they want the adjusted gross income for your household to be at least 125% of the federal poverty guidelines. And I want to show you what those are. All right, to know what the federal poverty guidelines are, I searched for the I-864P, all right, P for poverty guidelines. And if I look at this, I can look for the 48 contiguous states, as opposed to, or if you live in Alaska, click Alaska. If you live in Hawaii, click Hawaii. But I'm typically up within, I'm in the state of California, so this is what it is. We're over here in this column. You can file under the 100%, the slightly lesser standard, if you have someone who is in your family who's in active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces, all right? Talk to your lawyer about that. But typically, we're over here with looking to show that your adjusted gross income for your family is 125% or up of the federal poverty guidelines. So if you've got a family of 5, meaning it's you and your spouse and 3 kids, all right? If you've got a family of 5, then we're talking right here an adjusted gross income of $38,350 for the year. This is for the year 2020, all right? And so that's the current number for a family of 5, all right? And if you're talking a family of 5, but you've got one sponsor, all right, then really you're looking at, if one person is being your sponsor who's not in your family, is being your sponsor, like a joint sponsor or something like that, then that would be a family of 6. Unless that sponsor has a spouse, right, then it would be a family of 7. And so just be aware of what level, what family and stuff. If you have questions about that, talk to your lawyer, or or in our office, our paralegals, can help you explain that as well. All right. So that's the 125% of the federal poverty guideline. It says here, if your adjusted gross income is less than 125% based on your household size, you may demonstrate that the total value of your household assets and resources is 5 times the difference between your household's annual gross income and 125%. So what is that saying, all right? And then if you're a spouse or child of a U.S. citizen, it could just be 3 times, all right? What is that saying? If we go back over to where I just was, and say you've got a family of 5 and what they're looking for is $38,000, all right? Well, say your adjusted gross income is low, you know, maybe you were unemployed or whatever, maybe there was some financial hardship that you went through, and so maybe your adjusted gross income is $30,000 for last year. Well, they're going to say, okay, the difference between $30,000 and $38,350 is a difference of $8,350. And so what they're saying is if you want to do the math, and if you didn't quite have enough, then you could show that you have household assets, resources, cash in your bank account, or equity in a house, or something like that, that's worth at least 5 times that difference. All right. So if it was $8,000, you take $8,000, that was the difference. You'll multiply that by 5, that's a $40,000 asset. So if you've got a $40,000 house, then great, you're good to go. All right. You meet the 125% of the federal poverty guideline threshold. All right. So I just wanted to explain that. This, going down the instructions, it says you must provide a IRS tax transcripts. I've got a video on how to request IRS tax transcripts, all right? Not your regular filing of your 1040 or whatever showing that you filed. It's actually the tax transcript from the IRS, all right? So that's actually new. It's annoying, but it's new. You can get it online. Don't let it stop you, all right? Submit IRS tax transcripts for the most recent year. At the time, okay. If you're filing it between January 1st and April 15th, so before your tax deadline, then basically submit your most recent year that you have, but immigration can request the updated one when you go to your interview. All right, that's fine. And if you're a child or under the age of 21, and if you were listed on a dependent on somebody else's tax transcripts, they want that tax transcript, all right, and list the individual AGI, adjusted gross income, from that tax return where you were listed as a dependent, all right? And if you weren't required to file federal income taxes for any of those tax years, then provide W-2s or Social Security statements explaining that. All right, very good. And then additional income, if you had any other income, for example, child support income or unemployment benefits that may not have been taxed, include evidence of that. Don't list income from any public benefits, all right? And if you had any income from illegal activity, then talk to your lawyer before going through this, because that could cause a problem. Don't do illegal things, all right? Next on the instructions, they talk about assets, all right? Once we're done with income, they want to look at assets. So if you own a home, they're going to ask for the net value of the home appraisal, all right? And so if you don't know how to do that, at the very least, you can go to online to companies like Zillow.com, and you can put in your address and you can request an appraisal through them. There are ways to get more formal appraisals, like if you are the owner of your house, and if we're relying on that to show your case, then yeah, let's go through the process and get a formal appraisal on a house, all right? For cars, you cannot count a car as an asset if it's your only car, all right? So that's important to know because the government believes that you're going to need that car, right? And so it says you may not include the net value of an automobile unless you or your household member shows that you or your household member have or has more than one automobile, and at least one automobile is not included as an asset, all right? But if you have several cars, all right, and if they're worth something, then yeah, you can include them, all right? And to do that, we can show the, typically we would go to Kelley Blue Book, kbb.org, I believe it is. Let me just, let's not guess, right? Let's be thorough, let's be rigorous, let's go through this. Kelley Blue Book, there it is, kbb.com, all right? And so here's that. You go here, you choose my car's value. That's what you choose, all right? And you go through and you select the year. Say it's a 2013 Chevy Camaro, right? And you can put your zip code 94606. That was not my zip code, 606. Mileage, say it's got 25,000 miles on it because I don't drive it very much. All right. And now, okay, here is the categories. I'll have to choose that. Anyway, you go through the process, and I'll say it's a two-door. This is a better car than what I actually drive. So anyway, go through the process. I'm going to say price it with standard equipment. It's that color. We'll say it's in very good condition. Next. Calculating your Blue Book value for my area, searching transaction stuff, blah, 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 blah. Okay, it's approximate range for value, for a trade-in value is $9,284, $87. Instant cash offer, no, that's not what we want. Private party value, I think that's really the best thing to do. $10,000 to $13,000. All right, so that would be great, you know, and then you can see whether or not you're still making payments on it. If you owe it outright, then that's all equity in your car. All right. So anyway, I just wanted to explain that. It's a slight detour, but that's for automobiles. Then they're asking for other evidence of assets. So if you have a checking account, savings accounts, annuities, stocks, bonds, retirement accounts, any of that stuff, you want to list all that stuff. All right. For checking and savings accounts, they want accurate account statements covering at least 12 months prior to filing the application. All right. All right. So we've talked about income. We've talked about assets. Now they're asking about debts. All right. And more about finances. So debts, liabilities, they want a list of all of your liabilities and debts. All right. So examples can include mortgages, car loans, unpaid child or spousal support, unpaid taxes, credit card debts. It could be student loan debts. It could be other types of debts that exist. All right, and so you want to think about all that. A credit report can help you create that list. So it is recommendable if you've got any of that stuff. All right, and if they're linked to a Social Security number, if you've got any of that stuff, it's helpful and smart to get your credit report, and that'll help to do that. So to get your credit report, which is the very next thing that they're asking for, go to, they say usa.gov/credit reports. If we do that though, you'll see that it just forwards us to a place called freecreditreport.com. All right, and so check your credit report. Oh, annualcreditreport.com, that's what it is. Let's see here, there was a link somewhere. Credit score, credit reports. Annualcreditreport.com. Okay, there's the link for it. Anyway, so that's where you want to go, annual credit report. When you do that, and I'll create a separate video on that, it says here, request your free credit reports. And that's what you click. There's a 3-step process. You got to fill out your name and contact information and put your Social Security number in. Then you've got to pick which reports that you want, and then you've got to basically answer a bunch of questions that verifies your identity. And if you can do all of that, then you can get a free credit report. It's not as nothing that should stop you. All right, you can do it. If you want help with that, you know, feel free to contact your paralegal. If you're working with our office, our team can help you with that. All right. So if you have a negative history in your credit report, we can provide an explanation explaining that negative history. And that can include delinquent accounts, debt collections, charge-offs, repossession, foreclosure judgments, if any agency ever sued you to collect a debt or something like that, or if you ever filed bankruptcy. All right. And speaking of bankruptcy, they even ask that as a question straight on the form. The next section is health insurance. All right. So they do want your policy showing that you have health insurance. All right. And if you don't have, well, regarding health insurance, they ask for several things. They either want a copy of all pages of it, or they want a letter on company letterhead showing that you're currently enrolled in health insurance and providing the terms and type of coverage, or the latest tax form 1095B, which is the tax form for the tax stuff, all right? You have to indicate whether or not you received a tax credit for it. You have to provide the annual amount of your deductible, all right? You have to indicate the date that your insurance terminates. And if you have enrolled, but your coverage hasn't started yet, you can provide whether or not you've enrolled or you will enroll soon, and whether or not your insurance has kicked in yet, all right? Then if you have any public benefits or ever received public benefits, you want to include that information, all right? And so here they're looking for federal, state, local, tribal cash assistance, all right? Income maintenance, supplemental security income, temporary assistance of needy families, general assistance, which often is referred to as welfare, supplemental nutritional assistance program, or SNAP, which is what we refer to as food stamps, estampillas, right? Section 8 housing, public housing under the Housing Act, and federally funded Medicaid, all right? So if it happened before this date, and actually I believe, and I can cite to regulations on this, but this is the instructions of the form that were submitted in October of last year, but I believe that it's actually through February 24th, all right? Assistance that were sort of, for example, Section 8, or that were basically any assistance that was not SSI, cash aid, temporary assistance for needy families, or general assistance welfare that was before that date, don't apply and don't count against you, all right? So Section 8 and some of the later ones, federally funded Medicaid, things like that, they only apply if they're after the 24th of February of the year 2020, all right? Great. Yeah, all right. So as part of public charge inadmissibility, we will generally consider any past, current, or future receipt of public benefits, all right? There are some exclusions that are important to note. So if you are in the U.S. Armed Forces, then talk to your lawyer. If you've received federally funded Medicaid, but for an emergency, don't worry about it. If you were under 21, don't worry about it. If you used it tied with your schooling as a child, don't worry about it. And if you used it during pregnancy or during the 60-day period after your pregnancy, then don't worry about it, all right? I'm not going to go through all of this. And if you received public benefits while you were in an immigration category that was exempt of public charge benefits, say you were an asylee at some point, or you were a U visa holder at some point, then don't worry about it also, all right? Okay, so documentation, basically you'll need all of the documents related to any disability or any public benefits, all right? Okay, they're also asking for whether or not you've ever applied for or received a fee waiver when applying for an immigration benefit, all right? And so if you've applied for stuff in the past, you might want to run a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act request. You might want to talk to your immigration lawyers in the past, or your previous immigration attorneys, anybody that's touched your case, to make sure that you're filling this out accurately, all right? And you might say, to the best of my knowledge, no, but anyway. And many of the applications, like for U visas and things like that, heck, you might have said, yes, I applied for a fee waiver, but I was allowed to, all right, and that shouldn't count against me, all right? Part 4, they're asking for your employment and unemployment information. So go through that and indicate that. They're also asking for occupational skills. So this includes any certifications, licenses, things like that. They're asking for your English skills or other language skills. You know, if you're fluent in, say you're fluent in Spanish and also French and also Italian or something like that, you know, include all that stuff. Heck, you know, that's a marketable skill. So the more the merrier. And even if you speak basic English, like, let's include it. Heck, that's great. And even if you went to an English school, heck, a few years ago, still include it. It's useful. All right. Indicate whether or not you're retired in item number 6 there. All right. And that's basically all that I wanted to say from the instructions. Now I'm going relatively fast. sorry, I'll go back to the instructions, just make sure there's nothing else highlighted here. All right, on the form itself, all right, only select this box for a G28 if you're filing this with an attorney, all right, and your attorney bar will put their state bar number right there if you're filing it with an attorney, all right? So if you're filing it by yourself, don't worry about this, don't worry about any of this if you're filing it by yourself, all right? Your current legal name, that's pretty self-explanatory, name, family name, your last name, given name, middle name. Your mailing address, A number. If you have an A number, make sure that that is there. If you don't have an A number, leave it blank because they'll create one as you apply for your green card here, all right? Put your date of birth, put your place of birth, all of that's pretty self-explanatory. Your family status, include all the information, all the individuals for all of your household, all right? If your family are not immigrants, right, then you don't need an alien registration number for them. If they live with you, say yes or no. And if they're filing an application with you, say yes or no, all right? If they're filing, if you have a child who entered with a visa who wants to be included with your case with you, then include them, all right? And if you have a child who was born in the United States and who's a U.S. citizen, say no, you know, they're not going to be filing any application. They don't need a green card, right? They don't need any immigration benefit. They're already a U.S. citizen, all right? And so you want to list yourself and all other individuals who are a part of your household. And so, so do that here, all right? Now, you want to talk about your household income, all right? So household income, they say list your and your household members' total income from your most recent federal income tax returns, if any, all right? And so here, yourself or your household member, you put their name. Did you file a household federal tax return? Yes. If you did not file, select the reason. Well, you plan to file, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to file, provide an explanation, right? Hopefully you filed your taxes. Put the tax year there, and then put the total income from the income tax returns, W-2, wages, tips, etc., right there, all right? Or an explanation for not filing right there, all right? Then the next person in your household, all right? And then the next person in your household, all right? And then does any income come from illegal sources? Hopefully not. If you answered yes to that, what amount of your income was from illegal activities, all right? If that was your situation, please talk to a lawyer before filing this. We don't want to get you in trouble by filing this form, and stop doing the illegal activity, all right? So, all right, does any income from you, from your or your household members come from public benefits, all right? So hopefully the answer to that is no. That's not as big of a deal as the illegal activity because you don't want to face, you wouldn't face criminal prosecution for being on benefits, but it can cause a problem. So if you say yes here, talk to a lawyer first, all right? And then if you answered yes, what amount of your income was attributed to public benefits, all right? So then fill that there, all right? So now if you received additional income on a weekly, monthly, or annual basis that was not listed on your tax return, please fill that out and attach evidence of it. So the name of the recipient, right? You know, if somebody was receiving some other non-taxable income, then we can list all that here, all right? Is any of this additional income from an illegal source? Hopefully not. All right, all of that. Now we're done with income. And now we're talking about assets. And so here it's just listing out the name of the asset holder, anybody in your household, the type of asset, and the amount of the cash value in dollars, all right? Under the type of asset, they ask for checking or bank account, savings account, and annuities, stock, bonds, etc., or other, all right? And so you would just fill that out and then put the dollar amount, all right? Whatever the case may be. All right, and then it'll total up your current cash value. Then in liabilities and debts, you'll want to put what you owe. You know, if you don't owe anything for a mortgage, put 0. If you owe, $6,000 on your car, then put that there. If you owe $4,000 in credit card debt, then put that there. If you have a tax debt of $15,000, or 1,500 or 1,500. Put that there, right? And so you want to fill in the application, the total amount, and hopefully your assets, whatever's in your bank, hopefully you've got 20,000 or something in a checking account, something like that, so that your assets outweigh your debts. That's always a good thing to do when possible. All right. Provide the information about your credit history. Do you have a credit report? If yes, provide it. All right. If no, then they say provide a credit agency report that demonstrates that you do not have a credit record or score, all right? And you can also get that from the same place we looked at earlier, free or annualcreditreport.com, all right? Do you have a credit score, all right? And so there, say yes and say what it is, or say no if you don't, all right? If you said no up here, then you don't have a credit score, all right? If you have negative credit history, provide an explanation. And so we might say here, see declaration, and we might include something later, all right? Or we might just say, I don't know. I'll just say see declaration. We don't need to get into it. Have you ever filed for bankruptcy? Yes or no, all right? If it's yes, then you've got to say where you filed, and you've got to say when you filed and the type of bankruptcy it was. Typically, it's a Chapter 7 if you're an individual case. If it's a Chapter 11, this is for a business, right? If it's a Chapter 13, then it's like it's an individual but with assets, all right? Like if you're saving your house from foreclosure, for example, but through bankruptcy. That's what Chapter 13 is about. So if you did file for bankruptcy, you would know it and you would have those records, all right? So just be aware of that. But most likely, the answer is going to be no there, all right? And then if you did file for bankruptcy, heck, President Trump has filed for bankruptcy, right? If you did file for bankruptcy, talk to your lawyer first. It doesn't automatically prohibit you, right? Don't worry about that. There's no stigma related to it. Let's just explain it, all right? So here's where they were asking about health insurance on the form. Do you have health insurance, yes or no? If no, then proceed to item D, and then have you enrolled, or I will soon enroll. That's what we often put if somebody's unable to enroll yet because they're not a green card holder. And then what we do is as soon as you got your work permit, which yes, you're going to apply for a work permit when you're applying for a green card, then you can say I'm going to soon enroll, and then you can get all that information once you got your work permit. All right, public benefits. Have you ever received or are you currently receiving any of the following public benefits? So blah, 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 blah. We went through this in the instructions. Typically, it's no, I have not received these public benefits. And so, yeah. And then, no, I am not certified to receive any in the future, any of the public benefits. No, I have not received any. So this is like both past and future, right? So have you disenrolled, withdrawn from, or requested to be disenrolled from public benefits? So sometimes that's a good thing, right, to put for this purpose. So if it was yes, you were in Section 8 housing, right, and then say yes, you are applying or you have applied, requested to be disenrolled from them. So there we wrote in writing to the Housing Administration to get disenrolled or withdrawn from your public housing benefits, right? And so great. So then it asks for more information here on the specific information about the type of benefits, the dates covered, the amount received, all right? If you answered yes, do you fit any of these exceptions? We talked about these exceptions in the instructions just a few moments ago. And then submit evidence as outlined in the instructions of the exemptions. Was it related to an emergency? Was it related to individuals regarding your education, right? Was it received while you were under 21? Was it received while you were pregnant, etc.? All right. And then if you answer, and if none of those apply to you, then okay, then you've got a public benefits issue. And so we're going to need to explain it. And we're going to need to provide a heavily weighted positive factors to overcome the totality of the circumstances. That's beyond the scope of what I'm saying right now. All right. So then you got to provide the following documentation. If you've ever applied, blah, 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 blah. If your application was denied, select all that apply. The date that you applied for anything. If you've ever applied for a fee waiver related for an immigration benefit, say yes or no. Do you have education and skills? Yes, or do you have an approved I-140 alien worker petition? Yes or no? For our clients, typically the answer is no. That's not the case in some law firms. Have you ever graduated from high school or earned a high school equivalent? Hopefully you've graduated from high school. If not, hey, get a GED. All right, that'd be a good thing to do. Fill out the program name and go through that process. List any other education and skills that you have. Any other occupational skills, you're going to list your occupational skills there. Your language skills, do your language skills there. That's pretty basic. Retirement, all right, are you currently retired, yes or no? If you're retired, since when? And all of that. Now here you're declaring that you read and understood everything in English, or you're declaring that you've gone through this whole form with an interpreter, and the interpreter is going to say, hey, they're fluent in English and Spanish, or they're fluent in English and French, or whatever the language is that you speak, all right? And you understood everything, all right, and agreed to it before you signed it. And here is where you would have a preparer, all right? So if I, as the attorney, am going to be the preparer on the case, then that's where I would put my information. If you're doing this on your own, then you would leave that blank, all right? And then the declarant's information, so your contact information, and then make sure to read all of this so you understand exactly what you're preparing and what you're signing and what it means. And then you're going to print, verify that everything printed correctly. You're going to sign there, have the date of your signature right there. If you had an interpreter, the interpreter's information will go there in this language, and they'll sign and date. If the preparer, if you had a preparer or an attorney help you, then they'll fill their information here. They'll say that they are an attorney and that extends to more than just this form, because hopefully they're representing you on the whole green card case, and they're going to sign there with date there, and then that's it. All right, the rest of this you complete at your interview. All right, here is a little space for extra information if you want it. I typically like to provide an attached statement, right, with it, and not have it just here on this form. I like to have a separate declaration in support of the application if there's any issue that comes up that needs to be explained. That is it. We made it. We made it through. This is a long video. This is a long form. I hope that you found it helpful. I'm going to stop my screen share so you can see a larger video of me. I really hope that you found this helpful. I'm sorry that U.S. immigration makes this such a process, all right, to put everything together, put your whole financial package together. The goal, though, is to make sure that the government sees that in a totality of the circumstances, you are not likely to become a quote-unquote public charge and need public benefits in the U.S. So that way they see that you're admissible, they approve your application for the green card. There's obviously a lot more that goes into the green card than just this, but for today's purposes, I wanted to help you explain how to fill out the I-944 Declaration of Self-Sufficiency. If this was helpful, please give this video a thumbs up so that the internet sees that this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching this. If you have any questions about these forms or about how we can help you through the green card application process, please contact our office. We love winning complex green card applications, so please contact us. My name is Otis Landerholm, Landerholm Immigration APC, where we fight for your American dream. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and very best of luck with your immigration case. All right, thank you so much. Bye-bye.